The forces of Kislev, brave men and women of the north who are the first line of defence against the dark forces of chaos, not through choice, but through location, location, location. Kislev borders the edges of the Chaos Wastes, Norska, and the northern reaches of the Empire. When the hordes of chaos march, they march through Kislev, and the warriors of Kislev try to stop them. This has not gone well historically. Despite this, Kislev has ever been bowed but unbroken, and has given the Empire and other races of the old world time to prepare when chaos is on the march. Kislev is a nation split in two. The northern and wild Ungolds and their southern more civilised Gospodars have to be bound together if Kislev is to survive. Fortunately, there is one woman who can do just that. Katarin Bokha, Tzarina of Kislev, and an Ice Witch. In fact, the greatest Ice Witch there has ever been. She's Elsa, if Elsa was a queen of Warhammer Russia and was likely to kill you by freezing the blood in your veins if you looked at her the wrong way. She made a whole new section of the palace entirely out of ice, which is both really cool, but also really cool, as in chilly. Must be hell to live in if you're one of the servants. I mean, who are you going to complain to about having the thermostat set too low? No one's going to care. Tzarina Katarin has a reasonable stats for a caster, although low armour is going to limit the amount of time you want her fighting in melee combat. Of course, her main power is being a caster, and she comes with the new Ice Magic Law. We were also told that Kislev will have access to the Law of Tempest, but we didn't get to see that during the battle. Katarin has access to 6 spells from the Law of Ice, Ice Sheet, Ice Maiden's Kiss, Heart of Winter, Frost Blades, Death Frost, and Crystal Sanctuary. Heart of Winter was the real star here, an AoE that slowed and caused a large amount of damage to everything in its AoE, especially against the low health of the enemy waves, meant that Katarin could destroy entire waves by herself. She also has an ability with 2 uses called Frostfang, which was a rather nasty AoE explosion that did a fair chunk of damage. It should also be noted that single units now come with the Wounded ability, so that once they've lost 50% of their health, they lose some combat effectiveness. The dev said that this was because most units lose combat effectiveness as they take casualties, while single units did not, and this was a way to attempt to redress that balance. Unit cards also now come with a tier list, which was last seen in Thrones of Britannia, I think, which allows new users to easily identify which units are better than others, which is pretty important in a game like Total War Warhammer, where there is such a huge amount of unit variety. It's a nice touch. So let's get into the units. Tzar Guards. The Tzar Guards guard the Tsar. Strange enough, rocking at tier 3. They are armoured and shielded and are statted as a defensive infantry unit. They will hold the line against whatever comes at them fairly well with 50 melee defense and 75 armor plus silver shields. They would perform well at that role, although their armor is a little bit lower than some other heavy infantry. Streltsi! Oh my god, my lovely axe boys. The Streltsi are glorious gun shooty lads, and I love them. Like Empire handguns, but they can bench press a steam tank and have made the genius move of making their guns into axes so they can shoot people and then hack them to little pieces afterwards. These are my boys. I've only had them for 3 hours, but if anything happened to them, I'd kill everyone in this room and then myself. So, myself, basically. Great armor, melee attack, melee defense, plus armor-piercing melee attacks. Not to mention, of course, they have guns. Mind-blowing stats, and easily one of the best units so far in the Kislev roster. Kossars. Kossars, made up of the Ungol who live in the north of Kislev, continuously battle against the corrupting influences and the mutated hordes of chaos. They come in 2 variants and are your tier 1 infantry unit, but another hybrid unit armed with bow and either hand weapon or spears. Their stats are low, as you'd expect, but armed with bows and the ability to take spears and so fend off cavalry charges, they could well provide a real nightmare to deal with. Ice Guard. The Ice Guard. We saw these ladies in the Warhammer 3 trailer. They are hybrid infantry armed with glaive and bow, although because they're specifically marked as being armed with glaives, that suggests they could come in other variants too. They are tier 3 infantry. They come with excellent stats across the board, except armour, which they do lack in. Despite this, being armed with bows and frost attacks means they may well not do in the front line, but they can easily deal with anything that may decide they are easy prey. Winged Lancers. The Winged Lancers, young sons of boyars making a name for themselves by riding horses fast around supermarket car parks at 2 AM while listening to loud minstrel music and attaching wings to themselves because fashion. The Winged Lancers are an institution in Kislev, and are always the first into battle, a mixture of impetuousness and duty. But when Kislev needs them, they are always there. They are tier 2 shock cavalry, as it suggests. Good on the charge, but you won't want to leave them in combat for too long. But with their excellent speed, you should be able to manoeuvre them into the best possible position to get those rear charges where it counts. The fact they cause fear will also help a little bit. Little Grom. Little Grom. Classic Kislev humour. And what could be more Kislev than a cannon being pulled by 2 bears on a bed of magical ice? Classic. While it might look like a mortar, the arc of fire is higher than a cannon, but not quite as high as a mortar. It is only a single artillery unit. It packs quite the punch, but its melee stats are pretty good. I guess that's what you get when you pull things on magical ice with giant bears, rather than add wheels to it. Take note, so-called Empire. Gryphon Legion. The Gryphon Legion are a famous regiment of winged lancers, but in Warhammer 3 they are likely to be an upgraded winged lancers unit. At tier 3 they come with upgraded stats, as you'd expect, but less speed because of the more armour. Tankier are more capable of sticking in melee for longer, although you won't want to keep them there anyway. Patriarch. Who doesn't love an orthodox priest riding a bear? Of course. Obviously a support hero, although anything mounted on a bear is going to have some teeth. Stick a sickly orphan on a bear and he'd have some teeth. He comes with 2 abilities, Lullaby, which gives everyone regeneration in an area around him, very nice, and Roar, which increases charge bonus and leadership. Someone to have backing up an attack on the flanks, I'd say. He'll likely come with even more auras. Bear Riders. I mean, you know why you want to pay Kislev, right? It's these guys. And Bear Riders you shall have. Bear Cavalry with high armour and speed, strangely. But I guess bears could be quite fast. They have very good melee stats, which means they'll be more than capable of sticking in a fight. Their charge bonus isn't great, but will still come in useful. And their high weapon strength, armor piercing, and additional anti-large will also come in useful for dealing with enemy cavalry. Elemental Bear. Okay, now we're getting to the big guns. The Elemental Bear. A giant bear, of course, made from ice. Obviously. A tier 3 monster who is both heavily armoured, unbreakable, high health pool but lacks melee defence, not that it will need it. Physical resistance, and the unbreakable means this thing will fight, and fight to the death. It does come with a breath attack, sort of like a magic missile thing, which it has 3 uses of during the battle. I had this thing fighting bloodthirsters, and it was more than capable of doing it. Horse archers. I didn't actually recruit these in the battle, I must say. Everyone loves horse archers. They're missile cavalry. I mean, you know what missile cavalry does, right? Shoots on the move, is quite annoying to deal with if you don't have missile units of your own. That kind of thing. Enjoy being kited to the ends of the earth. I'm sure we all know what that feels like. So that was the Kislev roster that we got to play with. Now, needless to say, I'm a lot more excited about Kislev than I was going into this. I think, I know I've said it multiple times, but the Streltsi, the Axe Gun boys, they are the unit I most want to play. And I know that sounds really boring, but I do love my gun boys. And gun boys with axes is it's the most metal thing. And this is a game which literally has demons in it. So I'm gunning for those. That's not. Didn't even think of that pun through, but I'm gunning for those boys. They seem pretty fucking legit. The whole Kislev roster seems very, very good. Obviously, we haven't seen all of it. The Tzar Guards are a nice tier 3 defensive unit, but we may see that they may not have the infantry front line in the early game. And, of course, the Tzar Guard don't have that good armour. So it may be Kislev's sort of downside is they're not that heavily armoured, so maybe they won't be quite as defensive. But with that said, with units like the Elemental Bear, the Bear Cavalry, and the Winged Lancers, I think, and particularly a lot of hybrid units as well, I think they're going to be a very strong contender on the Warhammer battlefield. So hopefully next we'll be looking at the Khorne roster. Obviously we didn't get to see as much of that as we did the Kislev roster, because we didn't actually get to play as them. But while Kislev was great, they are still a human faction. And so I feel like the demonic factions are going to be just that little bit more out there with what they bring to the table, which I'm really looking forward to. Anyway, if you enjoyed that, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.